Welcome back to Inside of Her C-Suite. We go inside of the C-Suite of another phenomenal woman who's the HR director of Africa and the Indian Ocean region. It's thrilling to see what's happening in HR, and her journey is completely fascinating. Walk with me through this conversation. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you
Very
so much.
nice to meet you, and
Thank
welcome
you.
to Hilton.
It's really good to be here. It's such an awesome space to be able to have this conversation.
Thank you, thank you.
So you studied HR, you studied at Wits University, your background and so forth is in this space, but when you were a young girl, were you good with people?
I was good with people. I had, a couple of good friends. I was always interested in the psychology space.
Oh, really?
So growing up, I used to watch Days of Our Lives. I don't know if it's still on TV. And there was a character in Days of Our Lives called Malena, who was a psychologist. So that's kind of like opened the door for this world of psychology, understanding the mind and how people think.
And when you were in school, sort of like some of the early formative years, where you're the type of person in class that would calm things, were you studious? What type of student were you in school?
Oh my gosh, I was the bookworm in school. I worked very hard. I think that came from being the firstborn in my family and coming from where I came from, which was a disadvantaged background. It was instilled in me very early that you have to work hard and get an education. So I studied very hard. I was, if you ask people who went to school with me, they'll tell you that I was a bit of a bookworm, if I can say.
So you've clearly turned disadvantage into an advantage.
Yes.
And certain advantages like being able to go and travel to Mauritius and just enjoy the sort of Indian Ocean vibe and so forth. What was it that really inspired you to go from disadvantage to advantage?
As I said, for me it was always about you must find your key out of disadvantage. And my key out of disadvantage was education. I also found that I did well at school, so I thought that would be the area that I focus on and the vehicle that I focus on to get out of disadvantage. So I went through school, I went through varsity and Wits Business School, and I always made sure that I did well at school.
And business school is not easy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You did it. Did you do it at a time? Did you have family? Would you have a husband? Kids when you were doing your MBA?
No, I went straight from school into university. I was fortunate enough to get university entrance at Wits University. So I did my degree and postgraduate diploma, straight after, and then after that I started working.
Oh, wow.
And then marriage and children came much later in life.
Oh, wow. So your first position in HR, take us back to your first position. Were you prepared for it? And what are some of the hard lessons you've had to learn?
Oh my goodness, I don't think I was prepared, You go to school and you learn to be a certain way in school and in varsity. When I got to the workplace, it was a completely different place. Firstly, I found it was very, at the time, still more white than diverse. I found that, you have things called key performance indicators. It is fast-paced, and it's also about not just doing your job, but selling yourself in the workplace. So having to learn all of those things and carve out who I am in the workplace and what do I want to be known for was some of the things I learned.
And at what point did you start to find your voice where you went, this is Hellen Mabasa, I'm settling in now?
Yeah, after a few years, I found that I loved my job. I loved HR, I loved working with people and, helping people with their issues, whether it be development, whether it be conflict management, whether it be driving an initiative that advances people in the workplace, I started loving all of that. And when I loved all of that, I also found that I loved speaking and I loved training. So when I started realizing that I was good at certain things and I loved the space I was in, that's when I think I started to flourish.
Got it. And in those moments when you started to flourish, do you ever feel as though, do you ever feel doubt? Are there moments when you still feel like, am I the right person for this? Or do you feel supremely confident now?
You mean throughout the years?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were times where, I felt, am I good enough? Am I the right person for this role? Am I the right person for this company? So there were definitely times like that, and it becomes important for you to have that internal locus of control, where you can look within and say, do I have value? Do I know what my value is? And do I know what my contribution is?
And your experience in HR, that's quite natural, isn't it? Like, I'm sure, even with gold medal Olympics, I'm sure at times they doubt whether or not they deserve the gold or they can win gold. Do you find that that's a natural thing for humans to it's almost, maybe it's even a humility that you question those things? Is that, what do you?
I think it's definitely a human thing. Unless you are extremely arrogant to think that you can do everything at all times and be the best of everything, I think most human beings will at one point or another question whether am I in the right space and can I do what I want to achieve.
And when you were appointed in your position now, HR sort of director of this sort of African region, how many people are you responsible for?
In the region, we've got just close to 5,000 people spread across Africa and Indian Ocean. And we've got, this covers 15 countries, and we've got HR teams in each and every one of those countries.
And so those HR teams, they report to you?
Yes, they report into their hotels, but they also functionally report into me.
Finding talent, has it been easy for you in this position? Is that, I know you love it, but is it easy to find good talent?
There is a war on talent currently, and it is never easy to find talent. All the companies are looking for the best, talent out there. They're looking, to develop them. They will pay them whatever, they can. And so it's a war. When they say it's a war, it's actually a war. Has it been easy? No, it has not been easy. But we do believe that, our brand as Hilton Worldwide goes a long way to attracting some of, the good talents that we have. What we do once they get into the company in terms of developing them, in terms of, advancing their careers also goes a long way.
Now you guys have a focus and a priority on women and youth. Tell us some of the things you guys are doing that you're pioneering, you're spearheading when it comes to developing women and youth.
So from a women perspective, we have a very strong diversity and inclusion strategy that is championed by senior leadership team way up to our CEO. At the moment, as I speak, we are 50% of our company is made up of women.
50%?
And up to 40% of our leaders are women. So that tells you a little bit more about our focus and how much we prioritize the issue of women. We've got different programs, in our industry, in the hospitality industry, learning and development is part of how we do business. So, we've got different programs, be them, apprenticeships, learnerships, leadership development programs that are meant to develop future kind of next generation of hospitality leaders. And always in these different programs that we have, we make sure that we have a good women representation. Just recently in South Africa, we launched a learnership program, a 12-month learnership program for 60 learners, and 80% of those learners were women. And we do a lot of that with the many development programs, many global leadership programs that we have.
Awesome. Let's talk. I mean, when it comes to working alongside men in diverse spaces, what do you think works? Like in terms of being able to lead in diverse spaces, because you seem to have been able to sort of master that, whether it's working with people of different background, cultures, people from different sort of ethnicity, age groups. What are some of the things that helps people thrive in that diverse space?
I think firstly you need diversity, right? You need to bring different
That
people.
helps. That's a good start.
That's a good place to start. So bring in diversity in terms of, be it from a gender perspective, from a generation perspective. At Hilton at the moment we've got 5 generations, be it from a disability perspective, sexuality perspective. Once you have that diversity in the company, then the next question is that how are you going to harness their strengths and talents, and how are you going to make sure that they work together? That's when you focus on issues of inclusion, making sure that everyone, no matter their background, they can come into the company and thrive.
And do you work well with people from different cultures, different spaces? What do you love about it?
I think you learn a lot, and it struck me recently when I was traveling to one of the countries in Africa, and we were at the airport, and our flight was delayed, and I could see just the interaction between some of the people who were at the airport in East Africa, and the exchange and everything. And as I was sitting there, I started thinking, the more I travel, the more I realize how little I know. So I think I enjoy working with different people, and a company like Hilton Worldwide definitely offers you the ability to work with different cultures, different language groups, people from different places. I'm Hellen Mabasa, and thank you for coming inside of my C-suite.